Hey guys, Frosted Knives here, back with another book review, and today we are going to be reviewing the final book in the Bachman book collection. We are going to be taking a look at The Running Man. And The Running Man was published in 1982, and I don't know what it clocks in as because this is a collection and I just didn't feel like doing the math. So The Running Man is the final book in this collection, and I gotta say, they ended this collection with quite a bang. The Running Man was actually really, really good. The Running Man is a straight-up, action-oriented story from beginning to end. And once again, Stephen King, or Richard Bachman, delves into this idea of a futuristic, dystopian society that relies heavily on entertainment, just like The Long Walk was this sort of dystopian society where people went on the long walk to earn a prize or to earn money. In The Running Man, they're sort of doing the same thing. Now, I do like the tagline for the original cover of this book. The tagline for the book was, in 2020, men don't run for president, they run for their lives. So the story of The Running Man is a simple one. It is about Ben Richards, and he lives in Co-op City in the year 2020. Very futuristic, very dystopian. There's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of pollution, there's a lot of garbage going on. And just like The Long Walk, we don't really know a lot about the political ramifications of the society, but we do know that the society is more or less dominated by the Games Network. And the Games Network is entertainment for everybody, and it is a way for them to basically make money off the poor. And people go on to these game shows to try to win money, and usually at the risks of their own lives. And there's a lot of different game shows that the Games Network puts on, but by far its most popular one is The Running Man. And basically, you go through a very intense psychological test, physical test, all these tests, all these people try to go on the show, and they basically whittle it down to about 2 people. And you go on, and you are literally the running man. You are running for your life as you are being hunted, basically to the death. You're being hunted, and the longer that you stay alive, and the longer that you stay alive and the more people that you take out increases the amount of money that you could win until eventually there's a mythical grand prize. And one of the rules of The Running Man is that twice a day you have to send in a tape to the Games Network. They air it live, and they basically... everybody's gunning for you, and citizens can turn you in, and anybody can turn you in. If they turn you in, you get captured, they get money. So it's basically, you are literally running for your lives. And Ben Richards decides that he wants to do this because he has a wife named Sheila and a daughter named Kathy, and Kathy is dying, or not dying, but she's very, very sick from the flu. Very, more or less a simple thing, but because of this world, it's very dangerous. So he decides to go on to get money. And so he goes on, and he becomes a contestant, and he runs. And that is the story. And so the story is he runs, he survives, and he runs for over 8 days. And over the course of the running, as he's being televised and people are trying to get at him and people are trying to stop him, he meets up a few people along the way. He kills a few cops along the way. Eventually, he takes a hostage. He does get wounded as you know, the story goes on. He gets beat up and wounded and shot, and he takes a hostage, and he basically, towards the end, he bluffs his way onto a plane. He does manage to get to Derry, which was a nice thing to see. Bluffs his way onto a plane with the lead hunter. There's a lead hunter, McCone. He's the big wig, the big hunter that chases all these people. Basically bluffs his way onto a plane by claiming that he's got explosives, and he doesn't. He gets on the plane. He winds up taking out everybody on the plane. There's a big firefight, and at the end of the story, the head of the Games Network, Dan Killian, offers him a job. and says, "You've made it this far. You've made it farther than any other runner I've ever had. I want you to come work for us. I want you to be our lead hunter," and all of this stuff. And then he basically says, "Oh, by the way, your wife and daughter are dead. Your wife and daughter would die 10 days ago, and you just didn't know that." It's never really clear who killed her. The Games Network said that it was a random mugging that killed them, but Ben Richards and the reader just doesn't really believe that. He believes that the Games Network killed his family, so in a last-ditch effort, he overtakes the plane, kills everybody, points the plane towards the Games building, and that's how the story ends, with him literally ramming the plane into the Games building, committing suicide. He dies in the plane crash, and we are led to believe, and it doesn't really tell us this, but we're led to believe that he kills the head of the Games Network, probably takes out the Games Network itself, wipes out the building, and wreaks all kinds of havoc. So it is an extremely good action story, and I can see why they wanted to make this into a movie, even though The Running Man, the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, bears very little resemblance to the actual book. But I can see why they would have wanted to make it into a movie, because it lends itself to a very nice, very well done action movie, because it was a very nice and very well done story. You really feel the claustrophobia, you really feel the paranoia as Ben Richards is running and he's escaping and he's going through all of these different things. At one point he's crawling through a sewage tunnel. You can feel the claustrophobia of him trying to get out so he doesn't get caught. You can feel his paranoia as he thinks that everybody is out to get him. He doesn't know where the hunters are. He suspects everybody. He doesn't trust anybody. And all that sort of bleeds into the reader, and you begin to feel the same thing that Ben Richards feels as he's running for his life. There are other things in the book, too, that the book sort of talks about. Whether they're intentional things that Stephen King meant to talk about or not, I don't know. But again, there's themes in the book, themes of environmentalist themes, of how society views the poor, how the rich view the poor, the idea of entertainment, and how entertainment is just there to nullify the masses, and that as long as we are being entertained, we're basically sheep, and that we can be controlled. The idea of all this pollution in the Co-op City, everything is very, very polluted. And there are filters. They talk about nose filters that people can wear, but really only the rich people can afford to wear nose filters so that they can breathe properly, and everybody else can't afford it, so they're left to make their own, or they're left to basically get diseases and flus and lung cancers. And so there's this whole idea of polluting the environment and environmentalism, really how society views the poor, how they're marginalized, how they're strictly only used for monetary purposes, to make money off of, or to be used as entertainment purposes, because it's mostly the poor people that run in the games, that do all of the games, so they're there for the entertainment of the rich masses. And there's a lot of those themes in this book. Whether or not Stephen King intended to write those themes, and that's just what sort of came out, I don't know. I don't know if he meant to make a statement or not. He was very young when he wrote this. Maybe he just wanted to write a ripping good action story. And if that was the case, he succeeded, because it was very well done. And it ended the book on a very good note. So The Running Man itself was really good. You can really get into the mind of Ben Richards. You really begin to feel his claustrophobia and his paranoia. You really feel like you're running with him. There's a really cool, well, I don't want to say cool, but there's this really intense scene at the end when he's on the plane where he gets gut shot and his guts and intestines literally fall out of him. And at one point, he literally trips over his own intestines. It gets a little gross. I thought it was interesting because I'd never really read that in a book before. And this might be the first time I've read The Running Man, because I don't really remember it. So either I read it a really long time ago and I just forgot it, or I have never read it. But either way, it was like I was reading it for the first time, and it was good. It was a ripping good yarn. and I like it. So they ended the book and the collection on a high note, on a good story. The Running Man itself, I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads because I think it's a really good story. And I think it's well worth your time. Now, let's talk about the Bachman books as a collection, because we went through each individual story. We reviewed each individual story, and now here is the collection. Overall, the collection was pretty good, and I think if you've been following the reviews, the one that I really didn't really get into a lot was Roadwork. And I suspect that may be the one that Stephen King himself doesn't really like, because, as I mentioned in my previous review, he did say that that was a story that was trying too hard. It was a way for him to sort of explain or understand his mother's death. So, really, as a collection, I think The Long Walk and The Running Man are two of the better books two of the better stories in the book. They're both top notch. I like these stories of games, and that you're trying to win the game, and that if all the games are rigged, but you're trying to win it, and you're trying to go for the prize. I like that. I like both of those stories. I do like Rage, but again, as we talked about, Rage was written at a different time when there weren't that many school shootings. Now, unfortunately, they are commonplace, and so Rage just doesn't terrify or just doesn't shock the reader anymore, because sadly it's stuff that we've already been exposed to. A lot of young people have been exposed to it. A lot of people who watch the news have been exposed to it. These are things that we've already been exposed to. At the time Rage was written, it really was a novel idea, and people didn't really do that. These things weren't really as commonplace as they are now. And I can see why it went out of print, and I can appreciate that. I think that was a wise choice on the part of Stephen King. And really, the low point of this whole collection was Roadwork. But overall, the Bachman books are still a good read for you, because you get to see a side of Stephen King that you don't normally get to see. You get to see a side of Stephen King that's not supernatural. That's not about the boogie woogies. It's not about the ghosts and the vampires and the zombies and things like that. You get to see a part of Stephen King that's dirty and gritty and violent, and just about human nature and society, and just that kind of story. No supernatural elements, just people striving against their environments, or fighting against their place in society, or fighting against society, against things like that. So this is well worth your time to read the Bachman books. You get to see a side of Stephen King that you don't really see anymore. And listen, for all you people, and I do read my comments, for all you people who tell me, who have commented that you think I look like a young Stephen King, look it. This is him on the back cover. I don't see it. I just don't see it. But this is a young Stephen King right there. At one point, he did have a beard. Anyway, just wanted to point that out. The Bachman books, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5. It is well worth your time to see the different side of King, to read the different side of King. And later on in life, after his post-accident, when he started writing other books, like Bag of Bones, like Lisey's story, like Duma Key, things like that, that's another whole different side of Stephen King. That's an older, post-accident Stephen King. We may get to some of that. Not my favorites of his stuff. Some of his later works, in my opinion, hit or miss. And I've only read them once. It might be a good idea to reread them again. I don't know. But here we are. The Bachman books. Well worth your time. If you can get this as a collection, it's probably going to be hard to get it with all 4 because Rage is out of print. You might just have to go and get 3 of them. Well worth your time. 4 out of 5. It's really good stories. Really good nitty-gritty, down and dirty, violent, human stuff going on in here. So I really enjoyed it. that was my review of The Running Man. Hopefully you have liked this review, or have liked all of the Bachman book reviews. There are a couple of other Bachman books coming down that still need to be reviewed, right? There's Thinner. That was a Bachman book. There's Blaze that he published not too long ago. That was a Bachman book. And there's The Regulators, which is the other part of Desperation. When he published Desperation, he published 2 novels, Desperation and then The Regulators. That's also a Bachman book. And there may actually be a Bachman short story somewhere in one of the collections. I think My Pretty Pony was a Bachman book, or a Bachman short story, and I'm not really sure. I'd have to check, but somebody will correct me. And it was in a collection, one of his later collections. So guys, that's my review of The Running Man and the Bachman books. I hope you enjoyed them. As always, like, comment, subscribe. People are saying to ding the little bell. I don't know why. I guess that's a notification thing, so yay for that. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.